This is Suspicious Minds with Wade Durbin and Burl Tuttle.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Here we are. We're doing it. We're live-ish.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Burl.
And I'm Wade Durbin.
All right. And we're going to talk about Elvis a little bit. Some Elvis movies.
I can talk Elvis all day.
We'll see if that's true. We're going to put that to the test, especially with the particular things we're talking about today.
Yeah, today we're talking Elvis movies.
Yes, absolutely. We picked a few of them. We watched them. Well, we picked two, and then we're gonna talk about an Elvis movie that never was because we made it up, sort of. And then we're gonna talk about whatever the next podcast is going to be after that. So yeah, cool. And so the movies that we did pick, we picked Girl Happy, and the movie everybody would pick if they were going to talk about Elvis movies, which is, of course,
Viva Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas. Yeah, it's got to be that one.
Of course.
But I guess we should start. We should just dig in to. I mean, I don't think we have to give a huge overview of it. Maybe just a general synopsis, and then just talk about a few things we dug, things we didn't like, things we would have done different. I don't know. Sure.
Well, Girl Happy, the first movie we're talking about, was Elvis's 17th film, which is kind of amazing to think. By 1965, he was already on film 17.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of film careers that never even make it that far. So
yeah. And he was the highest paid actor in Hollywood at the time. I know that.
Yes.
And it does feel like season 11 of a show, though, already. He's on movie 17. They've kind of got the formula. The King Creoles and the Jailhouse Rocks are, first season stuff. And they've found this is what it feels like to me. They've kind of found the tried and true thing, like the formula that works. And then they're just like, let's just keep doing this. Let's just keep running with it. So
yeah. And there's enough Elvis media out there that you can kind of see on his face in this film, the light in his eyes has dimmed.
Just a little bit.
He's maybe not 100% engaged in what's happening.
Yeah, I would say that at some point during that movie, he's actually saying a line from another movie that he's probably just done, and then nobody caught it because it just works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my theory. Yeah, right. And he might just do it from time to time. This is just a theory I have. They would just throw in lines from old movies just to see if anybody would catch it. And I doubt anybody ever would.
Well, as I said before, every Elvis movie contains elements that you see in every other Elvis movie. And so, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all if he was recycling lines. So, Burl, can you tell us a little bit about what happens in Girl Happy? Like the shortest possible synopsis.
Okay, so this is how, if you were going to write it on the back of a matchbook, a rather large matchbook, it's that Elvis, or Rusty, right? It's Rusty
Wells.
Rusty Wells and his combo are playing in Chicago. They're at a club in Chicago, and the club owner is like, I want these guys to stick around. They're getting ready to leave and go to Fort Lauderdale to play the spring break season, like the couple of weeks during spring break, where they've been playing for a couple of years since they all got out of college, which, if you look at them, it looks like about 23 years ago. But
yeah, and let me just break in here. Doesn't it seem a little bit weird that Elvis makes this passing reference to having gone to college?
Yeah, it does.
It's like, remember back in college? And it's like, well, I don't know, Elvis. Really?
Yeah. Well, for the suspension of disbelief, I guess, it works.
Sure.
But at any rate, so then the club owner, Big Frank, he's telling these guys, hey, I got you. You're sticking around for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, as long as Big Frank says you're sticking around. As he's telling him this, he gets a call from his daughter. He goes up to his office to take this call. It's the wonderful Shelley Fabre.
The lovely and talented.
Beautiful young woman. And she says, Dad, I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. I'm not coming home for the holiday, which is Easter, correct?
Yes.
Right. So I'm not coming home for Easter, but I'm going to Fort Lauderdale with my friends. All the kids are doing it. I'm doing it too. And you can't stop me. And thank you so much. And she hangs up the phone. Just as this happens, the guys, the band, Rusty and the combo, they're like, you know what? We got to go to Fort Lauderdale. This is our thing. So they're going up to tell him, We don't want to stay here. We want to go to Fort Lauderdale. The other guy's checking out. Rusty, or Elvis, tells him, hey, I'll go down there, blah, 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 blah. He finds out about the daughter being down there. And he's like, oh, what can go wrong? They actually mentioned sex. These sex-starved kids are going to be down there. Man, I'm making this way longer than it should be. Basically, the dad says, I'm hiring you to go look after my daughter and chaperone her. And
to keep her from getting knocked up.
Keep her chaste.
To read between the lines.
Yes. So then they go down to Fort Lauderdale, and then I guess hilarity ensues. And that's pretty much the extent of it. That's kind of the setup, and then the mishaps that happen along the way. So that would be my bullet points of what happens. There's obviously a bunch of stuff after that goes on, but the setup of this movie is that.
Just a couple things about the setup. The way that Big Frank tells Rusty Wells in his combo, we're going to keep you for 4 weeks, perhaps 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. The thing is, Elvis and his boys, they have a gig in Fort Lauderdale. They're booked. Can't you just say, geez, Big Frank, we've got a gig. You've got to respect that as a business owner.
Yeah, but I think the idea...
But that never comes up.
It never comes up, but I think it's sort of implied that Big Frank is like a mob guy, and you don't say no to the mob.
Never once does it say that he's mob connected. It's just the way that the characters dance around him.
Yeah.
I suppose it's implied that he's got these mob ties.
I think that it might be also because he smokes a cigar. And that's it. That's how you know. Like, he must be part of the mob because of his tobacco habits.
Double-breasted suits, pinstripes, Okay, we get it.
Yep.
So,
if you see the office of this club and the size of the club, you're like, well, these two things don't add up. I've been in an office of a club before, as I'm sure you have as well. It's usually like packed with toilet paper is on some shelves. There's a printer, like an HP printer from like 2003, a desk that looks like was found in an alley, then brought there but dropped off the truck 3 times. And one of the legs is broken off. It's a cinder block. It's never nice. It's never a nice thing. This guy is obviously connected somehow. So
Sure.
The one thing that struck me is like these guys, and I've mentioned it before, the guys in the combo, and they're down there.
Who do not even have the dignity to have a name for their band. They're just Rusty Wells and his combo. You know what? They're saving space. They're saving time. They got to write a whole nother movie like the minute he's done with that one. So the combo. Sure. I was looking at this, and all these teenagers look like they're 32 years old. That's exactly, I wrote that down in my notes while I was watching it. And I was like, well, how old is Gary Crosby? And take a guess. He was exactly 32.
He was 32 years old during. I was like, well, that makes sense then. That's why this guy who's a couple of years ago when I got out of college. Kind of crow's feet, receding hairline, smoker's cough. He actually had a walking cane, rickets, maybe a goiter. Throws on some reading glasses a couple times. Yeah, whenever he's like reading the fine print on anything, he has to kind of like adjust focus by pulling it away a little bit, like because he can't read it. So, sure. Yeah, one of those things. I guess we can dive a little bit more into it. So that kind of struck me. I think we talked a little bit before about the wonderful instruments they have, though, in this movie. Man, and I tell you what, there's a lot of great musical instruments that Elvis plays in his films. It seems like whoever was production designer was picking the most interesting guitars and whatnot to look at. But Girl Happy in particular has some like really stunning examples of mid-60s American instruments. The one that Elvis plays, that blonde Telecaster with a maple board, Bigsby Bridge. How about it? I know you like guitars. I'm a fan. I like that. But the weird thing is I don't know how common the Bigsby was on that. That's a custom shop rig. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No way was that a production model. What I, of course, like, though, because I'm a big fan of the hollow bodies, that Country Gentleman, the Gretsch Country Gentleman. Oh, yeah. Well, I think they all kind of swap around on guitars. They're all multi-instrumentalists in the band. Sure. But yeah, that Gretsch Country Gentleman, that precision bass, and they're all like early 60s, costing thousands upon thousands of dollars now, if you were to get them. But, man, they're gorgeous. Absolutely. But they get down to Fort Lauderdale, and, the weird thing is it doesn't feel like Fort Lauderdale. You feel kind of confined to, like, that hotel and then the club that they're in. And, like these things where you're kind of like, hey, we're going to the beach. And there might be some stock footage of the beach. I think that's it.
There's some second unit stuff that's definitely Fort Lauderdale, but yeah, at no point does it ever feel like Elvis and his gang are hanging out on an actual beach.
Nary a tan line to find amongst them.
Outside. They never even really seem to be like actually outdoors. There are a couple of beach sequences and the promotional materials for Girl Happy. It was sold as a beach movie.
Right.
Like, oh, hey, Elvis is doing a beach movie now. Hey, you kids like that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And also circling back, this is the first movie where Elvis had a band that had lines and characterization. And the idea behind that was, hey, kids, you like the Beatles, right? Well, here's Elvis and 3 random dudes. So that's kind of like the Beatles, right?
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. And you can kind of see the genesis of what they were doing there. And then just a year or so later would have come the Monkees. Like somebody would have seen that and said, hey, a band can be goofy, like 4 guys hanging out, and here's some hijinks. I mean, really, it's not a far jump to see something like the Monkees kind of jump out of that.
It's not, but the Monkees, of course, being like a much better rip-off of the Beatles concept than Rusty Wells and his combo, which is, by all accounts, Elvis and 3 non-musicians playing the band, because, you know, there's a lot of like awkward pantomiming.
Right.
But yeah, the beach stuff, it's all shot in tight close-ups or kind of medium shots where you see a little bit of sand, you see a beach towel, you see some sky. It sort of reminded me of the cover of the Motorhead album Ace of Spades, if you're familiar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little bit.
Where they're standing on, it looks like a sand dune, and you see a sky. And the story behind that, it was like, oh yeah, it was just right in back of this building. There's a little patch of sand, and we found this angle that we could shoot this photograph that looked like, oh yeah, they're standing on a beach, when they really weren't at all. It was like in the middle of a parking lot. It feels like they're in the middle of a parking lot.
They probably were.
They probably were.
Yeah. Would not shock me. Yeah, that scene with the boat, where they're on the boat, everything feels like it's indoors. Like all of it. There are a couple scenes where they're driving down streets and stuff, but that even seems like something on a back lot somewhere.
Yeah, or, you know, second unit stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that boat, Shelley Fabre has this suitor at one point, who was Romano, the Italian Lothario. And he takes her to this boat, and I believe the boat is called, well, I don't know what it was called. I think it would have been like the SS Statutory. I don't know, or the SS Roofie or something, because he's just like plying her with champagne upon champagne, so much so that she doesn't even notice that they're being drugged behind a car at any point. And then when they wind up back at the hotel and a phone just appears to her, she's like, hey, what's going on? I just got home. So that's how drunk she's playing during this. So I would say, I think he might have slipped her something there. I think that Romano was bad news the whole time.
Yeah, and as we'll see in the next film that we're talking about, Viva Las Vegas, there's a lot of like mistrust of Italians in Elvis films.
Yeah.
Also, a small bit of trivia about Romano. The actor's name escapes me, but the actor at the time of the filming of Girl Happy was 35 years old. Oh,
okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, once again, a mid-30s teenager, not unlike, was it 90210 back in the day? Didn't they have a 30-something-year-old teenager?
Sure, like Luke Perry, I'm sure, was,
he was
on the wrong side of 30.
52. About 52 during the shooting of that.
Yeah, maybe the last season, you know, he was like celebrated his 52nd birthday during the series finale. But
yeah.
And that might be a slight exaggeration. But also the boat sequence where, just setting this up, Big Frank calls Fort Lauderdale and the phone rings and Elvis picks it up. And the first thing they establish is, oh, it's Chicago calling. Like the city itself. I don't know. I wasn't around in 1965. Is that how phone calls worked back then?
Well, I think they narrowed it down quickly after that. You had to know where it was coming from, and then the person or place it was from. So Chicago, and then they'd say like the hotel or the club, and then the person maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's how I want my information given to me. It's sort of like seeing like an area code come up on your phone now. You're like, oh. It'll say like, call from Louisiana or something. You're like, oh, okay.
Sure.
I won't answer that. I'm not going to pick that up. I won't even pick it up now. It's anybody. It's just text me.
Yeah, I haven't picked up a phone call in 10 years.
Yeah, no reason to.
Yeah.
In text form.
Also, I'm no legal expert, but towing a boat through the city against somebody's will and dropping it in a hotel swimming pool can't be legal. I don't know.
I think at Fort Lauderdale at the time, it would have just been seen as hijinks.
Sure.
Like just kids being kids. Because here's the thing, back at the time, is just a bunch of white kids on spring break, just up to their no good nicks. And that was just okay. That was just fine.
Yeah.
Even though they do arrest a bunch of people later, but that doesn't even really last. They just let them all go for getting in a bar fight.
It's for a bar fight, though the only people that were jailed were women.
Yeah, that's true.
Who didn't really seem to be in the bar fight. I don't know. I'm a little shaky on that plot point.
I think it's just that they were all wearing heels, so they didn't run away as fast as the men.
Oh, okay.
That would be my theory on it. That was probably the only reason they got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll win you a no prize.
Exactly. Right.
But also, as you've noted, they were jailed by Jackie Coogan.
Jackie Coogan. Yep.
Uncle Fester.
Yep.
This was the gig he had right before Addams Family started. So
wow. So
yeah, he went from Girl Happy to the barber to shave the rest of his head, and then onto the set of Addams Family. So that's fun. Yeah,
that's nice. Good. It's good to know.
Yeah,
it's good to know he was staying out of trouble before the Addams Family.
Sure,
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also have to say that the fight started because the Shelley Fabares character, Valerie, was at a club that was a strip club, and then she decided, well, I'm going to get really drunk, and then I'm going to get up there and I'm going to do a strip tease, which she didn't make it too far into for a very long time. Like, she was up there for a very long time, not strip teasing, but just sort of drunkenly stumbling around. Then Elvis was like, no, we can't have it. And then fight breaks out. So,
well, this is a movie strip club, one of the strip clubs with no stripping.
Exactly.
Because they're in the club earlier, and she's basically aping a routine that she saw earlier in the strip club, Shelley Fabares. And there was no stripping from the original performer.
Well, she took off like a little bit, like she just kind of bared her midriff.
Came out with a lot of clothes and then left with fewer clothes.
Slightly fewer clothes.
Slightly fewer, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
She went from business to business casual.
Right.
Yeah, whilst on stage. Yeah.
It's that suspension of disbelief thing. It's like shooting day for night. It's like you can kind of tell it's not really nighttime. It's just, as you can tell, she's not really naked. She's not really going to get naked. But just imagine this is the sort of thing that would happen in a club like this.
Yeah. So for you, what are the things that you disliked the most about the movie? Like, we'll kind of hit those points.
Dislike the most. Well, I think the chemistry between Elvis and Shelley Fabares is a little strained, which makes it odd that she was his love interest in 3 films. Also, what was it, Speedway?
I think it was Speedway and then Clambake.
Clambake, right.
Clambake,
I always get Speedway and Spin Out confused, but I believe it's Speedway and Clambake.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Shelley Fabares is fine, but you can kind of tell Elvis is not really into it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work for me. What else? I say this all the time after I finish a movie. It's like, well, there just wasn't enough movie in that movie.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess my big thing that I didn't like was the gags all seemed so flat. So the parts that are supposed to be the funny part, to me, just never, because they do this like gag where they're like, Mayday, and then all these guys would like look up, but it's like them and a girl. One guy's on a balcony, one guy's they're just kind of planted around the set, and then they like peek out, and it's like, hey, I was making out with some gal, what do you need? And it goes on several times, and he has his other love interest that he keeps having to leave right as he's about to kiss her. And by the 4th time that happens, I don't know. It's just not that funny to me.
The other love interest, Marianne Mobley.
Yes, absolutely, yes. The lovely Marianne Mobley.
Yeah, who you might remember as in the later seasons of Different Strokes. She was who Philip Drummond married.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't put those two things together.
Right, and she was the one, I don't know, who was the little redheaded kid on Different Strokes? Cousin Oliver?
No, I think that's Brady Bunch, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever. It's all the same crap.
Yeah, it might be Cousin Oliver. I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh, Sam. That was his name.
That's it. There you go.
But I digress.
That's like, that Sam is her daughter then, or daughter. So Sam is her kid.
Yes.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm not going to snip that. I'm cutting that out.
Young redheaded Samantha.
Yes. Oh, at the end, so at some point, Shelley Fabre, Valerie, finds out that Elvis has been hired to look after her, and she gets very upset. But then the dad comes down from Chicago, Big Frank, to find out what the hell's going on. He bails Valerie out of jail. But then at the very end, there's like this reconciliation between Elvis and Shelley Fabre. And then Big Frank is like, well, are you going to kiss my daughter or what? That's what I'm paying you for. And that seemed really odd to me.
Yeah, well, there was the reveal in which Shelley Fabre, or Valerie, calls Big Frank at one point, and it's like, oh, I met this man, and, he's been, like, taking me out to eat and paying for my doctor bills and all that stuff. And then Frank laughs, like, oh, well, that's Elvis. I've hired him to, like, look after you. And, it's like, oh, and he's been, making out with me and trying to go to, like, second base and blah, blah, blah. And Big Frank is, like, overjoyed to hear this, which is strange because it would so easily be a plot point. Like, oh, Elvis, how dare you betray me? I send you down there to look after my daughter and make sure she doesn't get pregnant. And meanwhile, you're trying to roll in on her. So what's up?
Yeah.
And it's just never happens. He just seems to be overjoyed.
Yeah. Because I think the first thing any father thinks when their daughter's talking about their love interest is like, oh, he's a dozen years older than you. Yeah. He's a professional musician that's on the road 12 months a year. This is going to work. I see the stars aligning here.
Right.
I don't know. As far as I know, this is what I know about parenthood. That's always a plus. Those are all go into the pro column.
Just the way that Big Frank takes this news is very puzzling to me.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I think that's just kind of how that movie rolls. And I don't know. I don't know if I have any final words on it before we move on to Viva Las Vegas. Or do you? I don't think I feel kind of exhausted.
Girl happy. I don't know. Let's put a cork in it.
Yeah, let's do that. It needs it. It needs a cork in there.
Still very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, I would say if you were going to watch it, here's what I would say. There are obviously the standouts in his career, which would be, the King Creoles and the Jailhouse Rock and Viva Las Vegas, which we're about to talk about. But this is, I would say, it's definitely it's like a B+ movie, I would say, for the Elvis genre of movies.
It's maybe the happy medium in the Elvis filmography. It's like far from the worst one and far from the best one. What did he make? 31 feature films.
31. Yep.
Right in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. So the wheels, like all the mechanics were working at that point.
It's his 17th feature. It may be his 17th best film.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's
fine.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. It's right where you want to be.
Even if it sucks, you're still watching a movie with Elvis in it.
Exactly. It's not Last Place.
It's certainly not.
Yeah. Maybe at some point we'll talk about the Last Place movie.
We'll get to it.
Yeah. But we should move on to Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah. Viva Las Vegas, 1964 release. It's almost impossible to find accurate box office numbers for older films, It's like record sales before the sound scan era. It's all made up. It's nobody knows. But I've heard people say it was his highest grossing film.
That wouldn't shock me.
I mean, it seems like it's good enough to feel like it would be his highest grossing film.
It probably was.
Yeah.
Let's just go, it feels like it was, so it probably was.
For Burl and Wade canon, it is his highest grossing film.
Yeah. If we were going to make a list of highest grossing Elvis films, we just put that at the top without thinking of it. Anything else, like that's got to be it.
Right. And the burden of proof would lie on whoever was, reading our book.
Exactly. I agree with that.
But 1964 release, Beatlemania is running wild across the U.S. Viva Las Vegas seems like the least Beatlesy thing you could possibly make, but still, a cultural phenomenon. Elvis plays Lucky Jackson, who is a race car driver. He's in Las Vegas to participate in the first annual, what do they call the race?
The Las Vegas Grand Prix, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It sounds... Yeah. So it's the Las Vegas race, and it's the first year of it. They mentioned that it's the first year. Like, everybody's heard of it, so it's a big thing, but it's the very first one.
Well, I'm sure it got a lot of press.
Sure. Yeah. Well, being the first one, you got to be there and see what's up.
Yeah, of course.
And then one of the opening sequences, you get to meet his female lead, who is Anne Margaret, who, oddly enough, is named Rusty.
Yeah.
Like, why throw away a good name? Just use it.
Yeah, that's so weird to me. Well, Viva came out before Girl Happy, so I find it weird that Elvis wouldn't have said on the set of Girl Happy, it's like, why is my name Rusty? Like, my love interest, 3 or 4 movies ago was named Rusty. Maybe he didn't remember?
I feel like the name Lucky and Rusty and like Johnny and all those, they just seem to be... That's something we should look up for a piece of trivia at some point. How many different names did he have in 31 films? I'm going to guess it's like 7.
Yeah. Probably something like that. Well, once again, as I said, every element you see in an Elvis movie will be repeated in another Elvis movie.
Exactly. Well, here you go. This is one.
Yeah, there you go. It's the strange continuity between these films.
Yep.
So anyway, Lucky Jackson is hoping to raise money to buy a new engine for his car. Wins the money in a casino.
Right.
What is he, shooting craps?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, he's got the money to buy the engine. And meanwhile, he meets Rusty, who comes to a garage. He's not working in the garage, though, is he?
No. Well, he pulled his car in because that's where he's going to put his car together at. But it's not like a filling station garage. It's just a garage where all these race car drivers are there. And he meets the Count, who has a beautiful 1958 Ferrari 250 GT.
Once again, an Italian who's not to be trusted.
Exactly. Continuity in Elvis movies. So she comes in with car trouble, and then they pretend that her car is unfixable to keep her there, but then it just starts and she leaves. And then they go around all night looking for her, although he needs to go and get this engine ASAP.
Right. And they also assume that she's a showgirl because the only places they go to look for her are in Las Vegas showrooms.
I think it's based on her legs because you see her legs first and they're like, well, legs like that, she's got to be a showgirl.
Perhaps she mentions she's a dancer?
Don't think she does in any of that. But the sequence where they're looking for her, that's where you see Red West. He is at I believe it's called Swingers. They sing the Yellow Rose of Texas, or Elvis sings Yellow Rose of Texas and gets everybody out so they can see the showgirls. And then obviously she's not there, so they're mad and they leave.
Which, if Pee-wee's Big Adventure taught us anything, if there's one way to get Texans to fall in line is just start singing a song about Texas.
Yep. They love it. They love Texas.
Yeah. They go bananas. And also, Elvis, here's another thing you just couldn't get away with today. He gets everyone's attention by grabbing 6-shooters and starts firing in the air. In this showroom, presumably, there's hotel rooms above it. But that's very much in line with what we know about Elvis. He would just start firing guns to get people's attentions.
Exactly. Or if maybe Robert Goulet was like manning a spotlight. Yeah. He just shot at him. That could be what incited the whole thing.
Oh, man, we got to do a Robert Goulet episode.
We can. I mean, we're not doing it. We'll do it after this one.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll start doing it right now.
Yeah, I said we can't stop doing this one to start a Robert Goulet one. Like just
Robert Goulet was born in 1921 in Wichita, Kansas. I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm just making this up.
Here's the thing. So Viva Las Vegas, compared to Girl Happy, which was just a year later, there's outdoor sequences. It does not feel claustrophobic. There's so many, and the colors are lush. There's something about the film stock they were using, whatever it was, it looks amazing.
And also, there's a big difference here. In Girl Happy, there's a sequence where Elvis has an acoustic guitar and he's serenading his female lead, Shelley Fabre, singing Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce. And there's a similar scene in Viva Las Vegas where, acoustic guitar in hand, he's serenading Rusty at the pool. And though in Viva Las Vegas, they're actually shooting that outdoors in a real pool. And I just feel that makes all the difference.
It certainly does. It certainly
They're clearly outside. Their hair is moving a little bit because there's wind. I don't know. It's strange to me that filmmakers at the time or audiences, or I don't know who to lay the blame on here, just didn't seem to tell the difference or care.
Or maybe they didn't care. I think the idea that just Elvis is serenading you was enough. That was all you needed. But the fact that there are outdoor sequences, there's just so many things work great. And what's weird about it is how much Anne Margaret is in the movie.
Yeah.
For an Elvis movie, they are co-stars in this.
It lacks precedent, I believe.
Exactly. Because she has a number of solo tunes, a couple of them. Most notable would be My Rival, where she dances around on a house. Is it a houseboat? That's a houseboat, right?
Yes, it's a houseboat.
It's a houseboat. And then she makes what can only be described as toasted bread and then makes ketchup and mustard sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think it's off-putting. It just seems like something a crazy person would do. Or a very poor person.
Yeah, though it kind of falls in line with the Anne Margaret character because she seems deranged in this film.
I think what makes her seem deranged is she's just kind of crazy when she's dancing and singing. So she's always slapping herself. She's always kind of screaming weird stuff and making weird faces. And she really gets into it, and that's good. But it makes you just think she's a little bit off.
Yeah, maybe that was in vogue at the time, in the world of dance, give yourself into the dance, this wild abandon. It's like a person possessed, maybe that was a desirable quality. Or maybe that was just unique to Anne Margaret. I don't know.
Well, I know I've mentioned this before. At some point, you should go and look it up if you haven't seen it before. It's her. She's on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. Mid-70s, I want to say. And she does this song called I Got the Music in Me. And it is literally just the most unhinged. She's just all over the set, just dancing. And it is just insane. And it's just kind of, I think, how she was when she got into it. I think it's just it's very modern. It's just sort of who cares what I look like or whatever. I just have this feeling and I got to get it out. And I've got this music and I have to share it with you. And this is how I do it. It's pretty nuts, though. But yeah, she's got that. She's got the appreciation song, and then they do a couple of duets too. It's Elvis obviously has tunes in it, but they do "Come On Everybody." Well, I guess "Come On Everybody's really kind of him, but she's dancing the whole thing. She's on stage with him doing that.
Right.
It's even with Shelley Fabre in Girl Happy, she comes out with the sign "I'm evil" during one of them. I don't know. They got a couple tunes there.
But, the end result is that it's a fantastic film. I think it transcends the subgenre of Elvis movie. I think it's just enjoyable in its own right. You don't really necessarily have to be a big Elvis fan to want to watch Viva Las Vegas.
I think it stands alone as its own movie, not some of the Elvis movies. I think you would only watch them because it's an Elvis movie. And this, you watch it because it's just an enjoyable film. And I think some of the gags work a lot better. They do this whole bit where the Count is with Anne Margaret, and then they're having a dinner in his suite. and it's just hilarity ensues, but it's just a whole bunch of like things being dropped and whatnot. Those sort of work, but what really works in this movie is the race. The race scenes are pretty gritty. I mean, it feels pretty intense. Some of those crashes, it looks like somebody really got hurt doing them.
They are. Really, more people die in Viva Las Vegas than died in First Blood, which is...
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say in Vietnam.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
But First Blood, it's a violent film, but really only one person dies in it.
Right.
So, I like to use that as a comparison for surprisingly violent films.
Yeah.
In comparison to that, I don't know. It's a dumb joke. I
like it. No, I get it. I get it. I just don't know what the body count is in Viva, but it's got to be several. But just in the race alone, I don't think anybody else dies in it. But they never say specifically how many. So
well, and I don't think that it's really any doubt that the Count dies in the car race.
No, it's not true because he comes back at the end. He's at spoiler alert, they get married.
Elvis wins, and then the checkered flag kind of gives way to the wedding sequence where
Correct.
Elvis and Rusty are getting married.
Right. And he's
the
at
Count
the wedding.
is there. Yeah, I think he's the best man.
He might be, yeah.
Yeah. The way that I read that, though, is that the Count actually died, and that's a dream sequence. It's like kind of like Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge sort of a thing.
Yeah, it could be. That could very well be what it is.
But, just to sum up, Viva Las Vegas, superior songs, beautifully shot. Elvis has a co-star that is like really pulling her weight. A spectacular action sequence to end the film. And also, at 89 minutes, it is the shortest running time of any Elvis film.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel short. It feels jam-packed.
It feels as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think if they really worked at it, they could have got that down to 78 minutes.
They probably could have.
Just snipped a number.
Right. But, really, I'm sure theater owners at the time loved it. It's like, oh, man, we can book 8 shows a day. Let's just keep
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah, just cram them in, man.
Yeah, don't worry about sweeping up popcorn between shows. Who cares?
Yep, exactly.
Let's just cram these suckers in here and let's do this thing.
Absolutely. So I think we've kind of put a pin in Viva Las Vegas, at least for now. We can always bring it back up if we ever want to touch back on it. But then that brings us into the Elvis movie that never was, because we're the two people that thought about it. And
maybe the only two people on earth that, my brother and maybe somebody else, we've talked about this. But just the scenario being that Elvis passed away in August of 1977. The film Star Wars released in May of 1977. And I can't conceive of a possibility that Elvis did not see Star Wars.
Yeah, it's absolutely, I would say 100% that he saw that. He had rented, I guarantee he rented a movie, took a bunch of people to go, and went and enjoyed the hell out of that movie.
And probably Lisa Marie was there, It's like, hey, let's watch this thing. So the premise of this being that Elvis, after seeing Star Wars, and he was always a bit of a UFO buff, enjoyed ancient alien theories. I know Chariots of the Gods probably made it to his nightstand.
Absolutely.
Just an idea for his big break back into feature films.
Yeah, but then done in the tradition of the Elvis era of the 1960s. So just that sort of fast-paced 89-minute boy meets girl.
Yeah, 11 songs on the soundtrack.
Exactly. And then the title would be?
Space Out Fever.
Space Out Fever. And I think, to this day, I still think it's the movie that wasn't made that should have been made. But when we've pitched some ideas, we'll just go through a couple of them. Like, I think the idea being that during the atomic age, everyone thought this is why aliens are going to come here, because they realize we have atomic energy. That means we're smart. So that means we're ready to be in space. But what happens is that it's actually rock and roll music that is going over radio waves, and it reaches Elvis on his home planet, which I think would be like Lorecore. That would be the name of it, which is rock and roll spelled backwards.
Oh.
Genius stuff.
Yeah.
And then he hears that, and then he realizes that there are smart teenagers on the planet. So he has to go and interact with them because there's something that's happened on his planet, and there are no women in there anymore. And then he has to go find a rock and roll bride to take back to his home planet to keep the rock and roll planet going. So that would be the idea. And then I thought about this the other day because I think we've gone back and forth numerous times about who would the female lead be. And I think I came up with one. And if you've got a couple, you've got in mind. But I think I might have come up with the perfect one.
Okay, who do you got?
I'm going to go Susie Quattro.
Who probably would have been all of like 18 in 1977. But
it makes sense. It makes sense for these things. Yeah, but the only reason I'm saying that because she'd been on Happy Days. And she kind of played like opposite the Fonz, that kind of thing. Because she was it Leather Tuscadero? Wasn't that her name?
Yeah, Leather Tuscadero and Pinky Tuscadero. Is that right?
I think that would have been a sister. So Pinky was like the sister, then Leather was, I think they were two different characters.
Yeah, I can't keep it straight. I'm not very up on my Happy Days lore.
Neither am I. That was all I kind of know about it. But, obviously I'm just pitching that today. So then the idea is they get together, but then obviously there are songs. Maybe he has a robot friend.
Ooh, yeah, like a wisecracking robot.
A wisecracking robot. And the title song would be Space Out Fever.
Space Out Fever, of course.
And then his name?
Well, before he gets to Earth, his name would be Spaceman Kyle. And then when he gets to Earth, in order to blend in with humanity, he would change his name to Kyle Spaceman.
Which I think is brilliant. Because Kyle Spaceman.
Kyle Spaceman.
Kyle Spaceman. Hey, there we go. That's our first Elvis impression. Right there, you just did it.
Oh, man. And it was barely one at all.
It was just a little blip on the radar, but, there will be more to come, I'm sure. And then the other idea is that his spacecraft would look maybe like the body of a Fender Stratocaster, like flying in,
Yeah. Without a neck, but the drawbridge, the plank that comes out is the neck of a guitar. It kind of like extends out. And
with the little frets on it as like steps.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Smart. Very smart. Yeah.
How about this? The evil aliens that are coming to Earth that he has to save the Earth from, played by Kiss.
Oh, I like that. I like it.
Yeah.
Would be funny as if it was Kiss, but they just played jazz music. I'm kidding. It has to be Kiss. No, that would be awesome because that would be right around the era too. So he comes there, and then he has to fight Kiss, but him and his new rock and roll bride, and it doesn't have to be Susie Quattro, but since it's the 70s, I think somebody like Grace Jones would be good. Linda Carter would be amazing in that role.
Linda Carter would be amazing. Yeah. Susan Anton.
Yeah, absolutely. Farrah Fawcett.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, just name anybody from the 70s, early 80s. I mean, that's probably going to...
Sally Struthers.
Morgan Fairchild.
Whom I've seen naked.
Oh, my God. I think that one dated us a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think all this stuff
all of this is dated. Yeah, true.
Right. But yeah, Kiss is the villains. The 77, what is that? The Rock and Roll Over era? Oh, man, it would have been... Yeah. Or Love Gun. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Who cares?
Didn't you have a dream about Kiss?
I did. And it just kind of strikes me every once in a while. It's like there's so much Elvis media. How many ever albums released? Just tons of concert tours. Most of them in the 70s, of course. But, Elvis was out on the road 150 days a year in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Just working. 31 feature films in roughly about the span of like 15 years. And I was thinking how weird that would be if there was any other music artist that had a film career like that. And in this dream, I have dreams like this a lot where I go to thrift stores and I find stuff. But in this dream, Kiss, the band between the era of like 1975 to 1990, had put out 25, 30 feature films. Like Phantom of the Park was just the first one. And
right.
And then every year after that, there would be like 3 Kiss films. And there'd be one like, oh, well, this one stars Peter Criss, and it's kind of like a Casablanca remake or
right.
something.
Now, and they're all in makeup for every one of them, right?
Oh, Every single one.
Okay,
in the
that's what I
dream.
figured.
Yeah. Up until like 1990, it's like they never broke character. Like there would be several kind of like post-apocalyptic action films starring Gene Simmons, you know.
Oh, man. I'm going to tell you, I prefer that entire world. Like, I want to live in a world where that's what actually happened.
I know. Well, that's what made this dream so, like, intriguing. So I go to this thrift store, and it's like some old timer died, and every single Kiss feature film was on VHS for sale in the store, and they're all like $2 for $1 or whatever. And in this dream, I'm thinking, like, man, I'm going to buy every single one of these, and I'm going to give them to your brother, Burl.
Which is so weird. The person you would think to give them to would be my brother.
Well, because he lives in my hometown now, and I see him fairly often, and I'm like, oh, man, he would love this. I'm going to buy these. I'm going to drop them by his house.
Yeah.
And in the dream, what stopped me short was I figured, like, oh, he's got all these on Blu-ray anyway. He doesn't want these tapes.
He probably would.
Yeah, he probably would.
Yet if he didn't have on Blu-ray, he would have access to them through some streaming service.
Oh, sure. Like, and when I had the dream, the first thing I did when I woke up, I texted your brother and told him about it. And he was like, yeah, that sounds about right. If there were 30 feature films starring Kiss, I would probably have them all on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I would have grabbed those. He would have gobbled those up. Oh my god!
Just imagine the VHS box art on 30 feature films starring Kiss.
Well, especially as it got later into it. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty amazing. I think it'd be pretty amazing. And just all the superpowers they kind of have with the spitting fire.
Yeah.
And the laser eye. That was Paul Stanley, right? And then
Sure.
And Peter Criss he could nap anywhere. Wasn't that his thing? Because he's like a cat. He's just like wherever there's like a spot of sun, he can just curl right up, take a nap.
He has the amazing ability not to show up on set and to have easily reproducible makeup that they could put a stuntman in.
Exactly.
But no, that's the thing about these Kiss movies. They'd be like Elvis movies. They would have no continuity between any of them.
Right.
And they would all 4 of them be in every film, but one of them would star. There would be like a romantic comedy starring Paul Stanley.
Right.
Where like Gene Simmons is like his funny coworker.
And I like that they're all still in makeup. So they just be they're in makeup and all their garb, but they're like working at a tax attorney's office.
Sure.
Like they're both like paralegals.
Or like a scene where Ace and Peter are meeting up at the racquetball court. They have a scene, and they're wearing the protective goggles, but full makeup and costume.
That'd be great. Oh, man. I want to see these movies. We got to make these.
Yeah. If Kiss is listening, call me.
Well, I think we may have veered a little bit off course, which I think we're prone to do. I think that might wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
Unless do you have anything else to say about any of the movies?
Not necessarily, but just to summarize, Girl Happy, maybe Elvis's 17th best film. Viva Las Vegas, Catch Me on the Right Day, that day being today. I will say it's his best film. There's a lot of his films that I like, but I don't know if there's anyone I enjoy more than Viva Las Vegas.
It's definitely the one that to go back to, I think it's the easiest rewatch.
Sure.
In my mind. And I think Space Out Fever, we need to flesh that out more. We gotta work on that script, down the road.
I personally know several Elvis impersonators, so maybe we can make this happen.
Okay, there you go. Like, but how old are they?
Older than 42. Let's just say that.
For the purposes of being an Elvis impersonator, you just don't age past 42.
Right.
So
I'm 42 and 91 months.
Something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's very good. I think we can leave it here, and then we'll pick it up next time, and we'll talk about what, I don't know. We haven't picked out what we're talking about next time, but...
Oh, there's so many subjects. Not necessarily movies all the time, just any manner of Elvis-related subjects.
We'll do something. I know we're going to do one where we cook the meatloaf from Are You Hungry Tonight?
Yes.
And then we'll discuss.
Yeah, the meatloaf episode. That'll be fun. We'll do a peanut butter episode.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Maybe do a fool's gold loaf or something.
Sure. Peanut butter kind of figures a lot in the life of Elvis. It's interesting.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, until next time.
I'm Wade.
And I'm Burl. And we'll catch you next time. All right.